is Citizen Weekend with Olive Barrows.
A very good evening to you. Welcome to Citizen Weekend. We have some good news for you. After 38 days, Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo, who went missing in Uganda, are back on Kenyan soil. That is our top story tonight. But we also get into a conversation on Sudan, the forgotten war, and that is after shocking scenes of genocide came out of El Fasher. And we're asking tonight, who are the international players fueling that conflict? I will be joined this evening by Dr. Joseph Siegel, who is a senior research scholar, Center for International and Security Studies, University of Maryland, and will also be joined by Miriam Larusi, who is an MSF emergency coordinator in Darfur, and she will be telling us what the humanitarian situation is on the ground. As for now, let's take a look at the highlights.
We were being abducted by the military.
We are traumatized, but we are happy to be home.
Relief and joy. Families, friends and relatives jubilate as activists Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo are released after weeks of detention in Uganda.
There were a lot of complex negotiations that took place. One of them involved the former president of the Republic of Kenya, the fourth president.
Government intervention. Family efforts and the help of former President Uhuru Kenyatta, what it took to secure Njagi and Oyo's release.
Tumestuka sana, tujaiona miaka hiyo yote nimeishi huko. Mawazo yangu ni kushindwa tunatoka hapa tuende wapi, na tunajua hapa ndio nyumbani.
Lake Naivasha waters swelling. Thousands displaced as waters from the lake flood their homes.
Injunctions are not cakes to be dished to everybody carrying a plate.
They are blocking development. National Assembly Speaker accuses judiciary of issuing reckless conservatory orders. I'm joined by Belinda Phillips as our sign language interpreter. Activists Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo have finally been released by Ugandan authorities from detention. And that is 38 days after they were dramatically abducted by armed men while attending opposition leader Bobi Wine's campaign event. The duo say they were confined in a military camp operated by special forces who allegedly tortured them, occasioning trauma. The duo was handed over to Kenyan authorities at the Busia border crossing, as we'll hear now from Seth Olale.
Joy of returning home after 38 days in detention. Activists Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo were overcome by emotions as they were received by family, friends and human rights activists Saturday afternoon at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
38 days of abduction was not easy. We didn't think we were going to come out alive.
We are traumatized, but we are happy to be home. I'm happy to be here. There are things I might have taken for granted. Today I may not take them for granted.
The duo claiming that they were confined in a military camp operated by an elite force, despite Ugandan authorities denying involvement.
We were being abducted by the military. We have been kept by the military in Uganda for this under the Special Forces Command.
Oyo's and Njagi's family leading in offering prayers of thanksgiving.
We thank you because you watched over them, you protected them, oh Lord.
The visibly shaken activists narrating their ordeal while in custody.
We've not been eating for about 14 days myself. I've been fasting. It's been very difficult. The kind of food we have been given is not really food. We have been dehumanized, if I might say so.
And I believe that this is a moment, and all these moments are taking us forward.
I want to thank everybody who has been helping us throughout. It has been a difficult time, but God is in control.
Human rights activists expressing concern over what is now becoming a trend in the 3 major East African states.
And we are afraid that if these trends continue, it may not going to be easy for 2026 in Uganda and 2027 in Kenya.
What has happened to Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo could happen to any of us standing here today. And if we remain quiet, if we remain silent, these oppressive regimes will come for each and every one of us.
Viva! Viva, comrades, viva! Njagi and Oyo were finally released by Ugandan authorities and transferred to the Uganda-Kenya border at Busia crossing point, where they were handed over to Kenyan officials led by Busia County Commissioner Mwachaunga Chaunga. After 38 days of untold suffering and anxiety while in detention, the family of Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo says they're now pursuing justice in order to bring all those involved to book. Seth Olale, Citizen TV at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Nairobi County.
It took sustained diplomatic engagement between Kenya and Uganda, the involvement of former President Uhuru Kenyatta, and the use of emissaries to government and Ugandan authorities to secure the release of activists Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo. This is according to several parties involved in the initiative to secure the duo's release, and who include Bob Njagi's father, Frank Njagi. O'Day Francis takes a look at the push for Njagi and Oyo's release.
It took concerted efforts to secure the release of activist Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo. According to Bob Njagi's father, the family put in a direct request to Uganda authorities through government, and there was an engagement at high levels in the push to secure the release.
Requesting that they arrange for his release. That's one. Then ourselves, we have sent people. Somebody has talked to Museveni.
Okay.
We have sent people. Somebody has talked to Mrs. Museveni. So we have reached the authorities in Uganda. Whether they are the ones who have acted, we cannot tell for sure.
Njagi's father saying that there were signs earlier in the week that their efforts were about to bear fruit.
By Tuesday, they had told us that they are arranging for him to be sorted out.
On the government's involvement, Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs Musalia Mudavadi, in a post on his X account, revealed the diplomatic maneuvers involved. He wrote, and I quote, "Following sustained diplomatic engagements between Kenya and Uganda, including a formal letter I personally addressed to Honorable General Odongo Njegi Abubakar, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Uganda, both governments maintained open and constructive communication that has culminated in the safe release of our nationals." The two activists were handed over to Kenya's High Commissioner in Uganda, Joash Maangi. Ugandan officials, alongside the ambassador, escorted them to the Busia border town, where they were received by Busia County Commissioner Chaunga Mwachaunga. Civil society organizations saying it took a lot of lobbying to secure the duo's release. Amnesty International Kenya CEO Irungu Houghton, revealing the former President Uhuru Kenyatta got involved in the push to release Njagi and Oyo.
There were a lot of complex negotiations that took place. One of them involved the former President of the Republic of Kenya, the fourth President, and that is Uhuru Kenyatta. And it is out of the negotiations and the discussions that took place at the very highest levels of the two governments, plus the former President, that we have had the two, Bob Njagi and Nick Oyo, return to Kenya in the way that they are.
Pia nishukuru Rais mstaafu kwa kuwa haya bila intervention ya Wakenya wengi hatungeweza.
Uganda opposition presidential candidate Bobi Wine welcomed their release and posted on his social media platforms, "I have just spoken to them and they have told me they were being held by Museveni's son at Kasenyi military barracks. They were being interrogated about why they came to Uganda and attended our manifesto launch in Jinja." End of quote. Ode Francis, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
The arrests persist in Tanzania as the police intensify a crackdown on participants of election protests that hit the country last week. In a statement, opposition party Chadema confirmed the arrest of its Secretary General, Amani Golugwa, days after top party leaders were taken into custody. This comes even as 22 people were arraigned on Friday, facing charges of treason as more families come out in search of their loved ones. Laura Otieno has that report.
As quiet tensions build in Tanzania following the wave of unrest during the November elections, the state has continued to tighten its grip. On Saturday, Chadema Party Deputy Secretary General Amani Golugwa was arrested, joining the long list of hundreds of Tanzanians in custody in relation to the protests. In an apparent quest to tighten the noose, 22 people were arraigned on Friday, facing various counts including treason. Among them was social media influencer Jennifer Jovin Bilikija, who faced 2 charges of conspiracy to commit a crime as well as treason.
Kwa mjibu hati ya mashtaka, aliwahamasisha watu wanunue barakoa, sijui niseme kama neno sahihi, wanunue barakoa ili kujilinda na mabomu ya machozi. Sio maneno yangu, ndio maelezo ya hati ya mashtaka. Sasa mtu yote anaweza akawa na maoni sasa, hata kama sio mwanasheria akawa na maoni iwapo hiyo ni uhaini au la, lakini sasa kwa sababu liko mahakamani, wacha tutachakata mahakamani, mahakama itoe majibu kwamba kweli mtu kuwaalika watu wanunue barakoa ili kujikinga na mabomu ya machozi wakati wa uchaguzi mkuu. Mahati ya mashtaka, mimi mambo ya uchaguzi mkuu ilikuwepo mimi sijui, lakini nasema hati ya mashtaka inataja uchaguzi mkuu iwapo ni uhaini.
This, even as the clergy under the Pentecostal Voice of Kenya condemned the killings and brutality witnessed in Tanzania. The umbrella body further called on the Kenyan government to initiate diplomatic engagements to save Kenyans caught in the crossfire in the neighboring country.
Serikali haifanyi vile inatakana vikamilifu. Kile ninajua ni kwamba serikali iko na uwezo na inaenda hatua zaidi ili Wakenya waweze kuwa safe wanapofanya kazi ng'ambo.
We also call upon the government of our foreign nations, particularly East African neighbors, to respect the basic rights and freedoms of Kenyans in their country in adherence to UN and regional human rights conventions and protocols.
Human rights groups have reported more than 1,000 deaths, with government disputing the figures. According to the Reuters news agency, 145 people have been charged with treason so far, and scores of people remain unaccounted for. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
Thousands of residents of Lakeview Ward in Naivasha, Nakuru County, have been affected by floods caused by rising waters of Lake Naivasha. The situation that has gotten worse in the last few months has caused a humanitarian crisis and fears of an outbreak of waterborne diseases. Safina Cheng Ouma visited Kihoto Estate and highlights the plight of some of the affected families.
Lakeview Ward in Naivasha, Nakuru County, home to over 20,000 people. It's a beehive of activities, with residents forced to move out of their houses due to floods caused by the rising waters of Lake Naivasha. Where Cecilia Wanjiru's family home once stood is now an unsanitary scene of dirty water and solid waste scattered everywhere. She is desperate.
Tumestuka sana, tujaiona miaka hiyo yote nimeishi huko. Mawazo yangu ni kushindwa tunatoka hapa tuende wapi, na tunajua hapa ndio nyumbani.
Cecilia lacks words to explain her current situation, but the pain in her eyes reflects the depth of her loss. She remembers the night the warning of imminent danger came, and she desperately had to run with her children to a safer place.
Maji ilianza kujaa huku nje, halafu tukaona kama itaisha. Tukakaa tena kuambuka tukakuta kuna maji, na tuna msichana anaenda kufanya mtihani wa form 4 Tukaona atakuwa anapitia kwa maji kila sana, imeingia kwa nyumba. Sasa ikabidi tutatafute kanyumba twende.
The option to run for safety has however proven to be expensive for most residents, a majority being workers at the nearby flower farms, earning a meager salary. At phase 1 of Kihoto Estate, which is worst hit by the unforgiving waters, we meet Hamisi Ondieki. He was among the handful who were left behind. He could not afford to move his family, but on this day, he has no option. The situation has turned from bad to worse.
Na familia yangu tunakaa hapo kwa ajili hatuna means ya kuenda mahali. Ni kuenda kuwekelea mawe kwa kitanda, tupate mahali ya kulala, kupikia, lazima tuweke jiko juu ya mawe ndio tupige chakula watoto wakule walale. Hata watoto hawaoni jua.
Hamisi has no clear plan on where to go from here.
Nikiangalia mtoto, nirudi niende kumalizia pipi, hata kukula sikuli. Mtoto akikuangalia na akikuongeleza ni machozi.
His dilemma is shared by several families here. Many have been left at the mercy of selfish landlords, taking advantage of the increasing demand for housing.
The rent have been hiked. You find that some landlords have tripled the rent within this area. It is so difficult. I have still some people still stuck within these waters.
Mimi mwenyewe sijapata nyumba. Na hata ndio hata kama napata ile pesa 6,000 sitaweza kulingana na mshahara ambayo tunaipata. Hiyo ni halfway my salary.
3/4 of the residential areas have been submerged, affecting more than 40,000 people. The county government of Nakuru has availed trucks to evacuate those who have found alternative shelter. Many families, however, are still stuck further down near the lake, with boats being the only means to access and relocate them.
The biggest challenge is those people who are like a kilometer away from here. There are people stuck there. They have no resources to move. They are not able to move. They have families. They have small kids as young as even 5-6 months.
We have been camping here for the last 2 weeks, all trying to address the challenge related to these waters so that the people's welfare will be taken care of.
With the flooded latrines and spread of raw sewer, there is fear of an outbreak of waterborne diseases, children being more at risk. Residents are calling for reinforcement from the national government to address the developing humanitarian crisis. The floods have stolen something too difficult to replace. A sense of community that residents of Kihoto once cherished has now been shattered. The silence is deafening as we try to navigate what was once a clear path to access homes, schools, churches, and even the shopping centre, all now sinking slowly underwater. A return to normalcy for now remains uncertain. Safin Acheng Oma, Citizen TV from Kihoto, Naivasha, Nakuru County.
Safin, thank you for bringing us that story. President William Ruto has officially handed over the Amboseli National Park to Kajiado County government. The ceremony that brought together all instruments of management of the park also saw President William Ruto hand over all assets, inventory and rights to have Amboseli under the community's management. Stephen Little reports from Amboseli.
Songs and dances greeted President William Ruto as he arrived at the Kimana Gate in Amboseli to physically hand over the park back to the local community.
I, William Samuel Ruto, of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces, do hereby ordain, declare, and direct that the management of Amboseli National Park is hereby vested in the county government of Kajiado.
The proclamation met with cheers from crowds who gathered to witness the historic occasion.
Today we are making history. Kwa sababu we are not only sorting out a quarrel among individuals. We are not only sorting out what became a community concern, but we are also sorting out what became a conservation challenge here in Amboseli. When the community here felt that they were being left behind, that they were being ignored, that they were not part of the action, there was a challenge to Amboseli.
The handover made according to the deed can only be reviewed after 15 years should either party file a complaint of compliance.
Because we know it took enormous courage, because the persuasion, the voices to the contrary, the resistance, both locally and internationally, required a man of deviance, a man who understood what historical injustice is.
Yala ambayo umefanya leo ni kubwa sana katika jamii yetu ya Kimasai.
Kila mtu ayuko na Ruto kwa hii kura, ni mtu apendi sisi, ni mtu apendi Amboseli, ni mtu apendi wa Maasai.
President Ruto using the handover ceremony to endear himself to the Maa community who had gathered here from Samburu, Narok, Laikipia, Baringo, Kwale, Tanzania and Marsabit.
Na mimi, I want to give you my undertaking that I will support you. We will mobilize all the resources to make sure that we enforce and we protect that special plan for the benefit of the people of Kajiado.
Many communities were discriminated against the Constitution in all subsequent governments. And not only many communities, but Kenyans of all shades of life.
Nataka nikushukuru Mheshimiwa Rais kwa sababu umewahi kurejesha Amboseli mikononi mwa community ya Maa. Umepitia kwa njia zote, ulikalisha kikao cha cabinet, tukapitisha.
Eventually, after the full transfer of Amboseli National Park to the county government of Kajiado and the Kajiado community, the locals say the much-needed revenue will help in boosting development and even create more employment, with the Kajiado county government now targeting to collect about 1.5 billion shillings after a full transfer in the 2027-2028 financial year. Stephen Leto, Citizen TV, Kimana Gate, Amboseli.
Looking good there, Stephen Leto. Now, the National Assembly Speaker, Moses Wetangula, has slammed the judiciary over what he terms as reckless court decisions impeding the development of the nation. Speaking at the 8th Kenya Private Sector Alliance Speakers Roundtable in Mombasa, Wetangula argued that court injunctions should be a last resort in judicial rulings and judgments, with the leader of the majority in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, revealing that the controversial Finance Bill of 2024 was recrafted and eventually passed by Parliament 6 months after it was withdrawn. Questions of good faith arising. Seth Olale has more.
In yet another onslaught against the judiciary by the parliamentary leadership, Speaker of the National Assembly Moses Wetangula accused the courts of slowing down development of the country through issuing injunctions without considering the consequences of such actions to international financial lenders and contractors.
This perhaps a legislation that you as KEPSA brought to us to improve the way of doing business in Kenya. And the crowd who has gone to court does not even run a kiosk in the business world. He's simply a surrogate litigant for your competitors. And these are some of the problems we're having.
The National Assembly Speaker, while meeting members of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance during the 8th KEPSA Speakers Roundtable in Mombasa, said there is a need to have stakeholder engagement with the judiciary, which he said gave court injunctions too easily.
We need to have a roundtable with KEPSA, Parliament and Judiciary, so that they can also appreciate that injunctions are not cakes to be dished to everybody carrying a plate.
The business leaders called for an enabling environment and legislation for business.
If our infrastructure is not right, the ease of doing business would happen. If our logistics are not right, if things are not working at the port of Mombasa, at our own airports, at our roads, and our train.
Majority Leader in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, reviving the debate on the value and Parliament's role in passing the controversial Finance Bill 2024. Ichung'wah revealing that, though the bill was withdrawn after the Gen Z protests that culminated in the invasion of Parliament, it was recrafted and passed by the same House.
When we gave back or consummated the Finance Bill of 2024, it became Parliament's. The private sector completely abandoned Parliament. Disinformation, misinformation killed the baby that we consummated together. It took Parliament again another 6 months of lost revenues, lost job opportunities for our young people in the country, to recraft the same finance bill into 4 different bills.
If you want to start a new industry, start it and we will defend and we will protect and we will give you incentives. But you cannot allow you to use Parliament to tax your competitors so they get out of business. It has happened. And we know each other.
Seth Olale, Citizen TV.
Residents of Makongeni have taken to the streets to protest a government eviction notice issued to clear the area for an affordable housing project. While they insist they are not opposed to the development, they accuse the government of going back on an earlier pledge that any relocation would be carried out in phases. Instead, they say they have been instructed to vacate their homes by December the 2nd, a deadline they argue is abrupt, and inconsiderate. The community also points to the famous Makongeni grounds, a local sporting hub credited with nurturing football stars, including Alpha Onyango, as part of the heritage now under threat. Citizen TV's Ben Kirui tells us more.
On any given day at the renowned Makongeni grounds, dozens of youth can be seen honing their football skills. A tradition that has shaped sports dreams and kept many engaged in meaningful activity. This heritage is now under threat. The government has earmarked the field for an affordable housing project, issuing residents with eviction notices to vacate the area to pave the way for construction.
Watoto wanategemea na kuna wengine ni maorphan. So wengine hata wanastay tu na manyanya zao hapa. After hiyo ni kama hii talent hatutai protect anymore. Watakuwa wameenda hivyo kama hii mtaa itakuwa imeenda hivyo, na hii mtaa ni kubwa sana, juu ni 141 acre.
Tunafurahia sana affordable house. Lakini kwa mtaa tulielewana waanze in phases. Hatukuelewana wabomoe yote. Tulielewana in phases. Tunashangaa saa hii tunaambiwa mtaa inaenda yote.
While the community maintains that it fully supports the development initiative, they say authorities had initially promised that any relocation will be conducted in phases. Instead, they were shocked to receive a notice instructing them to vacate by December 2nd this year.
In as much as we embrace affordable housing, we also welcome transparency. Contrariwise, we shall resist illegal and forceful eviction.
Affordable housing tujakata iko sawa, lakini wangeweka hiyo kitu phases to phases, phase 1, phase 2, hata kama itafika phase 20. Makongeni ni kubwa.
Residents under the railway's staff retirement benefit schemes in Makongeni were reportedly offered a relocation facilitation fee of 150,000 Kenya shillings, an amount they argue is far below what was earlier agreed upon and insufficient for resettlement.
Watu wamesema ni do ilikuwa inatoka 350,000. At the same time, saiko ground wanaongelea story ya 150,000. Which hata hatuko sure kama itafika.
Wajenge mahali wapeleke watu wa Makongeni, alafu wajenge sehemu ile ilibaki. Sasa tunashangaa vitu imepindikwa mara moja.
Their plea is for the government to reconsider its approach and to ensure the project moves forward without affecting the lives and livelihoods of an entire community that has long called Makongeni home. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, and with that report by Ben Curie, we take a break on Citizen Weekend. But when we come back, that conversation I promised on Sudan, the forgotten war, I'll be joined by Dr. Joseph Siegel, as well as Miriam Larousi, who is in Darfur. She is the MSF emergency coordinator there. Thank you for staying with us on Citizen Weekend. And now we get into matters, the Sudan war. Well, there are many events that have led up to the present-day civil war in Sudan. I'll begin with the protests that led to Omar al-Bashir being deposed as president in a military coup after 30 years in power. Bashir himself having ascended to power through a military coup. His overthrow in April of 2019 was the result of protests over cuts to bread and fuel subsidies, a reflection on the state of the economy. A transitional military council took over, led by the Sudan Armed Forces Commander General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and included the Rapid Support Forces, who were originally the Janjaweed militia that carried out genocide against non-Arab communities in Darfur. 4 months later, after persistent protests for a transition to civilian rule, a sovereignty council, including civilian members, was formed. But after a tumultuous 2 years, the military faction took back full control of the council, but the Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok was reinstated a month later following protests. Over 1.5 months later, Hamdok resigned, leaving the military and paramilitary forces wrestling for control. On April 15th of 2023, war broke out with Sudan Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces as the warring parties, and they differed over the question of integrating RSF into the National Armed Forces. According to the United Nations, 12 million people have been displaced since 2023, with the number of deaths reported in the thousands, tens of thousands, and possibly hundreds of thousands in the last 2 years. The recent widely reported massacre in El Fasher by RSF, the last SAF stronghold in Darfur, is estimated to have claimed 2,000 lives. All right, as I mentioned previously, we'll be joined by Dr. Joseph Siegel, who is the senior research scholar and security studies, at University of Maryland. We have Miriam Larousi, MSF emergency coordinator who is based in Darfur. We'll start with you, Miriam. Perhaps you can tell us what the situation is like where you are. I understand you're in Tawila, which is where those who are displaced in El Fasher have sought refuge.
Yeah, this is correct. Thank you. Look, what we're seeing here is really catastrophic. That's the only word I can use to describe the situation. Right now, we have indeed internet displaced people that are fleeing El Fasher to arrive in Tawila. First thing that I have to say is that they arrive in a state of malnutrition that is extremely high. They arrive often wounded also. Our ER in the hospital that we have in Tawila is overwhelmed by patients. We had to increase the capacity at a very high level because we could not cope with the number of wounded people arriving. We have reports of violence all through the way out from El Fasher to Tawila, and also, of course, inside of El Fasher. We have reports also of sexual violence on the way out. People arriving here are fully traumatized. They are malnourished. They are wounded. This is what we're seeing right now in Tawila.
All right. And just how, you've probably given aid in a number of conflicts. How are you dealing with Sudan? It must take a mental toll on you.
On all of us, but mainly also on our colleagues that are here, Sudanese, that have family inside of El Fasher and still are there inside the hospital and all over Darfur, keep on supporting the project, keep on supporting our patient. So the toll is really on all of us. Everything that we know about El Fasher, we know it from all these people that are able to flee directly. We cannot really have contact inside of El Fasher because all the communication are down. And the testimonies that are coming they're extremely hard. They're hard, they're painful to hear. And now these people that are here inside of Tawila, they don't receive the support that they should receive. Tawila is now a huge city. We're talking about close to 1 million persons, but about 80% of them are IDPs. They are people that already fled the war in the past. So Tawila is now a kind of huge IDP camps. Now, what kind of support is provided in Tawila? That's the question. The shelter is not there for everybody. The newcomer, I'm saying newcomer, people that arrived 4 or 5 months ago still don't have a proper house. They report that they have not received food distribution for several months. They have a very low access to water. We're talking about maybe 1.5 to 2 liters per day per person. The standard in emergency is 15 liters. In emergency, it should be more. So we are below every standard that we should have in a refugee camp, in an IDP camp. So it's not only about the fleeing, it's about how they are received once in Tawila. And that's very worrying because the response in terms of humanitarian response there is not there. It's not at the level because this crisis is underfunded since the very beginning of the crisis, since the beginning of the war. So no, the organization here do not have the capacity to respond to what we have now and not to respond to what is coming from El Fasher, knowing that in El Fasher the population estimation is about 200, 250 people living inside of El Fasher. Nobody knows for sure. For now, we have received only about 10,000 persons. So the question is also, where are these people? Why can't they flee? Is it that insecure? So at this point, we're extremely worried about the situation inside of El Fasher. We know that there is a long history of killing that are also ethnically based, but also fully indiscriminate. So not seeing this population able to flee is, yes, a source of worry for us.
All right, I'll bring you in, Dr. Siegel, at this point, Senior Research Scholar for International and Security Studies, University of Maryland. Dr. Siegel, there's something that Miriam has said, which, echoes the term forgotten war. She says this is an underfunded crisis. We saw shocking images, video, satellite imagery coming out of El Fasher. Has the international community, in your view, reacted as one would expect when faced with genocide?
Well, clearly, given the level of violence that we've seen and the fact that it continues, the international community has not responded as effectively as it should. And over the past week, of course, as the images out of Al Fasher have arisen, we've seen more international attention than we've had over the course of the whole conflict. Nonetheless, we've been seeing ethnically based killings. We've been seeing indiscriminate violence, massacres, looting, rapes, as Miriam is describing, in other parts of Darfur and other parts of Sudan. And still, there hasn't been the level of international attention and pressure that's needed.
All right. And, why is that, in your view?
Well, I think there's several reasons. I think first is, there are many other international crises that have been happening simultaneous to the crisis in Sudan. We have what's happening in Gaza and Ukraine, their situation in Sahel, Somalia, DRC. So there's a distraction of attention. But I would argue, too, that, for many in the international community, what's happening in Sudan is seen as a regional problem, not an international threat. It's not threatening broader international security. And so it hasn't received the prioritization that some of these other conflicts have seen.
All right, and we'll get more into that. I'm very curious in terms of those, there's some who have also described it as a proxy war. So does that have something to do why this war has been allowed to go on for as long as it has? But I'll come back to you, Miriam. What's it like operating in an environment where globally we've seen cuts in aid, donor funding? How has that impacted the work you're able to do and the assistance you're able to give?
Right now, when it comes to Doctor Without Borders, we're really stretching our capacity to a maximum. And that's what we have been doing all over these 2 years. We're really reaching a point where we might not be able to stretch that much. And we needed all these other organizations to be able to scale up their activities in order to support each other. We can work on malnutrition, and we will always do that. But at some point, if food is being distributed, malnutrition will decrease. Talking about the outbreaks, we're just slowly coming out a cholera outbreak. This outbreak was huge. Then, if we have a sanitation inside of the camp, latrines, access to water, etc., this outbreak could have been smaller. Right now, we're facing measles outbreak again. This can be prevented with vaccination. But again, you need resources to implement all that. So Doctor Without Borders will always be there. We want to be in Sudan. We're strong in Sudan, but we need the whole system to better function if we want to support the population.
All right. And, we've seen especially, some shocking images that came out of Al-Fasher was 460, I read, killed in a hospital, a maternity hospital, as I understand it. As people who are giving medical assistance, are you concerned also about drone strikes? What is the situation in Darfur?
Well, there I would like to open the situation. Darfur is one part of Sudan. It's not all of it. All over Sudan, there have been drone strikes, there has been attacks against hospital and health facility. So that's something that really worries us, of course, and we've been calling for the respect of the medical mission since day one in this war. And we keep on calling for that. The medical mission, the humanitarian, but also more generally, the protection of the civilian. And right now, I'm not talking only about Darfur, all over Sudan, this is something that is not happening.
All right. And we've seen a lot of political statements come out of RSF, for instance, saying, they've opened up humanitarian corridors. Is that what is happening?
We're not yet able to access Al-Fasher. This is the reality when it comes to Doctor Without Borders or any other organization, but we know that negotiations are ongoing, and we're hopeful that at some point we'll be able to get there.
All right. Dr. Siegel, who are the international players who are fueling this conflict? Because they must get their arms from somewhere.
No, I think that's a very central point to this conflict, and it's one of the reasons that it has gone along as long as it has, and that it's been as vicious and sustained as it has been. This is now a regional conflict. You do have regional powers that are vying for control of Sudan and its outcome, and the economic largesse that emerges from that. Supporting the RSF, the main actor is the UAE. It has been sponsoring General Delgado, known as Hemeti, from the beginning of this process, and it's linked to arms supplies from Chad and Libya and Central African Republic, sponsoring the Sudan Armed Forces. Namely has been Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar. But from the beginning, it has most of the activity and the support has been behind RSF from the UAE, which is one of the reasons that has had such momentum throughout the conflict from the beginning.
And what are they after? Why are they, interested in Sudan? Is it the gold? Is it to gain control of the port of Sudan?
Well, this is part of a broader strategic set of interests. Many of the Gulf actors have investments in Sudan. There's about $24 billion of investments that are ongoing or pending in Sudan from the Gulf actors. These range from control of the ports to logistics, construction, agricultural land, as well as gold and mining interest. And of that 24 billion, about 90% is actually coming from the UAE. So it has the biggest stakes, and which may explain why it has continued to sponsor the fighting as much as it has in Sudan. It's unclear whether the expectation is that that RSF will come out on top, and therefore the UAE will be the prime external beneficiary of the conflict, or if the UAE is willing and supportive of a fragmentation of Sudan, and we actually see a division of the country between the West and the East, similar to what we see in Libya.
So do you expect the nation to fracture between the East and the West?
Well, that is where we're at currently, with RSF controlling large parts of the West and trying to move into Kordofan to a greater degree. Most of the Sudan Armed Force areas of control are in the northeast and in Khartoum. And the worry by many international observers is that these lines become a de facto partition of the country, and that would work against Sudan's sovereignty, Sudan national interest, and citizen interest. I think it's important to keep in mind that while we often talk about this conflict as two parties, two military actors, it's the civilians that are being left out of this. They are the ones who wanted a democratic civilian government back in 2019. They're the ones who peacefully protested. They are not supporting either of these sides, and they're the ones who need to be part of any negotiations moving forward if Sudanese citizen interests are to be considered.
All right. And given the atrocities, the pictures that have come out of Sudan, the testimony that we've heard from Miriam of the rapes, we've read of kidnapping for ransom, do you expect countries such as Kenya to roll out the red flag as we saw in February of this year for RSF, for instance?
I think it becomes increasingly difficult for countries to get behind the RSF. I think that had been the plan orchestrated by RSF and likely with the support of UAE to present Hemeti as de facto head of state, to be clear, UAE is providing significant foreign direct investment into all of the neighboring countries in East Africa, and so there's financial incentives to do so. However, given that Hemeti now has been linked to genocide both in the 2000s and now, his stature as a potential head of state, I think, really has to be off the table. It's just hard to see him being recognized and accepted in any viable international capacity moving forward. And I think that's going to be an important message moving forward.
All right. Miriam, have the last word. What is the message you'd like us to take away tonight?
A call for the protection of civilians, be it in El Fasher, but all over Sudan. An increase, really, of the response capacity of humanitarian actors already now. We're talking about a massive crisis. We're talking about very big numbers, but behind each of these numbers, we have a person, we have a patient who could have a future here.
All right. Thank you for enlightening us this evening on the Sudan war. That was Miriam Larousi, who is the MSF Emergency Coordinator Darfur, and we're also joined from Washington, D.C. by Dr. Joseph Siegel, who is a Senior Research Scholar, International and Security Studies, University of Maryland. We take a break, but Citizen Weekend continues on the other side. All right, thank you for staying with us on Citizen Weekend. And now we take a look at a story on JM Kariuki's widow and deceased widow, and DCP party leader Rigathi Gachagua has urged leaders, especially the young generation, to fearlessly fight for the rights of Kenyans. Gachagua says the youth should emulate the late JM Kariuki, who was assassinated in 1975 for upholding truthfulness. Gachagua was speaking today in the family residence of JM Kariuki in Nairobi, where alongside other opposition leaders, they had visited to condole with the family following the demise of Mama Terry Wanjiru, the widow of JM Kariuki. She passed away on the 30th of October. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka echoed Gachagua's sentiments, calling for Gen Zs to stand out in the fight for a revolution. Kalonzo, while recognizing the return of Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo in the country after more than a month missing following an abduction in Uganda, has urged activists to keep up the spirit and maintain the legacy.
As we prepare to bury Terry Kariuki, we remember with a lot of kindness the very useful contribution that her late husband played in trying to liberate our people and to make sure that they're economically empowered and they have the freedom to do what they want to do. And personally, as DCP leader in my party, I'm mentoring many young leaders. I want to have as many JMs as possible.
Tunahitaji JM Kariuki wengi wajitokeze, na vijana wetu hawa wa GNC wameiga huo mfano wa JM Kariuki.
A section of leaders from the United Opposition have launched a scathing attack on President Ruto's administration for trying to woo the electorate in Malava by launching development projects in the area. They say this is happening during the by-election period. Speaking during a rally at Shipala in Malava constituency in campaigns for the DAPK candidate Seth Panyako, DAPK party leader Eugene Wamalwa and Kakamega Senator Boni Halwale said the people of Malava are entitled to good roads as any other taxpayer in the country, saying it is not a favor. Halwale said he will not be cowed by threats from his party for campaigning for the opposition. They accused the head of state of disrespecting the Luhya community by fielding a UDA candidate in Malava, yet he did not do the same in Kasipul. The duo exuded confidence in winning all the seats in the forthcoming by-elections.
Ninyi muna haki kupata maendeleo, kupata barabara ya Summit kutoka Malava hadi Summit, kupata barabara ya lami kutoka Malava hadi Ekoli. Ni haki yenu. Munatoa ushuru kama Wakenya wengine. Kweli si kweli? Kwa hivyo it's not a favor ya kwamba eti Ruto anakuja hapa miaka 3 hajamaliza barabara hii ya Malava kwenda Summit. Sasa sababu ya kura ya Panyako eti analeta tingatinga saizi, muone tingatinga ndio umpee kura.
Ukienda Ujaluoni huko Kasipul, Ruto hajasimamisha mtu wa UDA huko. Anaunga mkono mtu wa ODM. Na hapa Kabarasi anasimamisha mtu. Kwa sababu hawaheshimu Waluhya. They don't respect us.
Na mimi nataka kuuliza wewe Mheshimiwa Ruto, tulikutafutia kura, ukatanganya sisi na sisi tukatanganya hawa wananchi. Ukasema kwamba utasaidia watu wa chini ukipeleka juu. Ukitoa Linda Mama, unasaidia mama mboga ama unaua mama mboga? Ukitoa Linda Mama, unasaidia bodaboda ama unaua bodaboda? Ukitoa Eduafya, unasaidia bodaboda ama unaua bodaboda?
Kenyans are set to benefit from a new empowerment new empowerment initiatives following the launch of the Eliud Owalo Foundation that aims to uplift marginalized communities through youth and women empowerment, education and digital inclusion, community health and climate action. Speaking during the launch, patron Eliud Owalo described the foundation as a, quote, vehicle of hope, empowerment and transformation, pledging to build a self-reliant Kenya driven by digital innovation. The foundation will prioritize youth empowerment, investment in sports and enterprise, and tap into the 75% youth population under 35, while also supporting women's economic inclusion through SACCOs and seed capital. Owalo has urged government, private sector, partners and citizens to join in, turning marginalization into empowerment, powering Kenya's future one woman, one youth, one community at a time.
To this end, good people, a large proportion of the Foundation's interventions have focused on youth empowerment. The Foundation's anticipated interventions on youth empowerment include initiatives aimed at addressing high youth unemployment and underemployment by leveraging sports, skills development, and enterprise support as tools for empowerment.
The foundation we are launching today has thematic pillars that resonate very well with the work of the European Union. And we share the foundation's conviction that ICT is an essential tool in the transformation journey. Ladies and gentlemen, the relatively young, youthful population can be a key transformative element for a major economic takeoff in the energy, creativity, and entrepreneurship space.
Drivers partnering with WeGo are set to benefit from a 90% commission, the highest in the market, in a move aimed at empowering local drivers while promoting road safety. WeGo, a Kenyan mobility company and the official transport partner for the Park and Vibe Season 4 event, also emphasizes responsible drinking by encouraging attendees to use ride-hailing services to and from the venue. The event, held at Kiambu Valley Gardens Kirigiti Shooting Range, brought together youth for a day of music, fun and safety awareness.
So far so good. We are very grateful to our drivers for showing up and offering reliable solutions to our customers, especially during this time where we are partnering with event organizers. We only want the best for our customers, which is safety, and we hope they can trust us as well to get them home safe.
Naam, WeGo pia tunao zile manufaa kwa madereva. Manake commission ambao tunachukua ni 10% peke yake, kumaanisha dereva anaenda jubani na 90%. So tunawaomba madereva pia waweze kujiunga pamoja nasi na tuweze kuendesha gurudumu pamoja katika sekta ya usafiri.
We are here courtesy of Park and Vibe, which has a good relationship with WeGo, which offer taxi services here. And as a youth, speaking Pombe, Ulevi probably, and we need a designated driver, you need your safe way home. I think WeGo has been the best option for us.
The Jipange na Viusasa caravan has concluded its tour of the western region, with residents of Shianda, Sabatia, Huisero and Luanda turning up in large numbers to welcome the team, led by Radio Citizen, Molembe FM, Sulu FM and Vuka FM presenters. Viusasa is celebrating 8 years since its launch by rewarding loyal fans across the country. Take a look.
Local artists Emmanuel Musindi and Anko Nico thrilled the crowd with popular Luya beats as they joined fans to mark Viusasa's anniversary in style. Gifts were in plenty, Viusasa fans walking away with various prizes, including cash rewards, with Harrison Ocheng winning 50,000 shillings.
Nasema asante. Na hii pesa itanisaidia. Kwa sababu niko na watoto katika vyuo vikuu. Mmoja iko Nairobi University, mmoja iko Kenyatta University.
Subscribers wetu, asanteni sana kwa kujitokeza kwa wingi na asanteni kwa kutushikilia. Miaka 8 si michache kuwa hewani na kuwa na watu wenye wana subscribe kila siku for 8 years. So tunasema asante sana na tunasema muendelee kusubscribe.
Viusasa, other than the promotion, is a platform
for content creators. We created that platform so that content creators in Kenya, wale wanajua comedy, wale wanaimba, wakina Musindi, vijana wetu wote wale wako na talanta, unaweka content yako hapo and you make money from it. Kama unajua kudance, kama unajua kufanya any creative activity, that's the whole point of Viusasa.
The 4-day Western tour attracted thousands of fans who subscribed to Viusasa, accessing premium video content and walked away with amazing prizes. The Jipange na Viusasa caravan continues its countrywide tour, celebrating 8 years of Viusasa with fans at the grassroots. Steve Shitera, Citizen TV, Luanda, Vihiga.
I spy with my little eye that Arsenal is up by 1-1 against Sunderland. For the first time this season, FC Leopards lost their league match following a 2-0 loss at the hands of Mar Sugar. In a match staged at the Mumias Complex ground, Leopards needed to win to go to the summit of the league, but they swallowed a bitter pill in the dying minutes after substitute Dennis Cheruiyot scored a last-gasp brace for the hosts in the 88th minute and 92nd minute. This was Mara's second league win and Leopards' first defeat after 7 rounds.
First loss of the season. Cheruiyot! Amesema moja haitoshi.
Record champions Gor Mahia are eyeing maximum points when they take on reigning champions Police FC in a KPL blockbuster match on Sunday at Nyayo Stadium. Fresh from a 1-0 draw against the Lindsay Stars, Gor Mahia head coach Charles Akonor is brimming with confidence, stating their clear objective is a victory after dropping points against the Soldiers. On their side, Police collected maximum points in their midweek clash against Sofapaka. The match is set for 4 p.m.
Couldn't reach its level, but can still figure out to get results. I believe that we have another chance to respond well after a very disappointing 1-1. It's a must win. I believe that we're in a very good chance from what I saw in Police. I'm not underrating them.
Yeah, true. They are a tough side, but equally we are prepared enough to make sure that we face them and get maximum points in that match. But I know it's not going to be easy, so the players really have to be mentally prepared.
It's that time of the year when golfers across Kenya celebrate their club leaders, and at the Muthaiga Golf Club, all attention is on Lady Captain Daphne Maina, who has been honored in a week-long celebration. The event teed off on Monday with caddies and professional golfers taking to the course, while the main event took place on Friday and Saturday, attracting over 250 golfers each day. The Kenya Ladies Golf Union chairperson, Rosemary Mkok, applauded all lady golfers who turned up. The hosts expressed their gratitude to sponsors, including Shabiki.com being one of the main sponsors.
This is an event that's not just happening here, it's happening countrywide. At this time, this quarter of the year, most lady captains are holding the Lady Captain's Prize. And these are events where we come together to celebrate our lady captains. Lady Captain Muthaiga Golf Club has done an exceptionally great job this year.
We have just concluded our second day competition of the Lady Captain's Prize 2025, and what a delight. It has been such a wonderful event. Today we culminated into the main event of the Lady Captain's Prize, being the Saturday.
We are here at Muthaiga Golf Club, once again, as Shabiki.com, proud sponsors of the Lady Captain's Prize, here to promote our super jackpot of 100 million shillings at the low cost of 94 shillings. You also stand a chance to win bonus prizes for 13, 14, 15, and 16 correct predictions.
All right, that concludes Citizen Weekend on this Saturday. Our video host, Olive Burrows, our sign language interpreter, has been Belinda Phillips. I hope to see you tomorrow on Sunday Live. Coming up, Diaspora Connects with Neville.